Welcome to the Gold News Channel. My name's Kerry Stevenson, and today, talking to somebody I've known for a long time, back in Australia now, due to COVID and a few other things, Michael Hudson. He is the Executive Chairman and Director of Mawson Gold, listed, ladies and gentlemen, currently on the TSX, and the TSX code is MAW. They're a gold exploration company with assets in both Finland and Australia. But here to tell the story so much better than me, Michael, welcome to the Gold News Channel.
Thanks, Kerry. It's been a long time between drinks, but lovely to be back with you.
And I wish we could have a drink. Now, look, we're talking in advance of the face-to-face, the live Australian Gold Conference, which we hope, ladies and gentlemen, will happen in February next year. So I thought it would be a good idea, given that you'll be presenting there, for you to let our audience know who are Mawson Gold.
Well, as you mentioned, I've been overseas for the last 20 years, apart from the last 18 months. So I've had 20 years on the TSX, listing many companies. Mawson is my baby. It's been around for 17 years, and mostly definitely in Europe for 95% of the time. And we landed on a discovery that we've drilled out essentially over the last 3 years up in Finland. It's called Rajapalot, and that's our flagship property. So we put 80 kilometres of drilling into that asset. It's a 1 million ounce resource now that we just put out last week at 3 grams, so a top quartile grade from surface. And then about 18 months ago, we joint ventured and bought into some properties in the shadow of the headframe of Fosterville in my backyard here.
Wow. Okay. Well, so we've got Fosterville in Australia and we've got Finland, and I can't even, what is it? Rajapalot.
Yeah, Rajapalot. J's are spelled pronounced like Y's, so Rajapalot.
How did you come across that particular project?
Like anything, it's a long story, but in 10 seconds, we were a uranium explorer back in the 2000s, and we got to know Areva during the GFC. Areva, the French multinational government-owned nuclear company, essentially, said we're pulling out of a lot of the non-core jurisdictions. They knew us. They asked us if we'd like to deal with their Russian and Finnish projects, and we said no and yes, respectively. And this project had some amazing gold. In fact, we drilled the best ever drill hole in Finland and in Europe in the last 10 years. 6 meters at 617 grams was our first hole from 7 meters down. 6 meters at 617 grams. So this was an amazingly high grade, over 6 kilometers. We didn't believe it that the uranium guys had such high grade gold. They'd never put a hole into it, but it was quite nuggety. So we had a time trying to pull that together. We went and explored wider, found a little outcrop in a swamp eight years ago. Put a few drill holes into it, and it was a bad time in the market. But the last 3 years, we've been able to attract a lot of capital, and 80 kilometres is a lot of drilling, and 1 million ounces is a lot of gold. Yeah. So that's where we are now. So it's a 10 by 10 square kilometre area. Only about 5 to 10% of the area has been explored. So it's going to get a lot bigger also.
What sort of grade are you talking about? Because that grade that you said right just before, it was mind-blowing. What's your average grade in the Finnish?
Yeah, the average grade is 3 grams gold equivalent, which is made up of 2.5 grams gold itself and 0.5 gram contributed by cobalt. So it's already the 7th largest cobalt resource in Europe, and it's our byproduct. And there's a lot of emphasis on why having a strategic metal project in Europe is very important from a European point of view. They want to be into the battery metal space and the supply chain, as we do here in Australia. So it's makes it much more powerful than just a junior having a gold project.
So currently, as you say, it's a 10 kilometre by 10 kilometre. You've drilled out, you say you've got a 1 million ounce resource, but that will only get bigger. What are the plans between now and when the people can hopefully meet you face to face in February?
Yeah, so Finland is going to get a lot bigger, but we've got the dual focus now of we've got something that looks economic on paper that we need to start demonstrating in the public domain. So we need to focus on the mineability side of the project. So I'm going to replace myself I have just replaced myself, I should say, as CEO after 17 years in this company with a mining guy, Ivan Fairhall, who's come out of Greenstone in London and a very experienced mining engineering guy who I've known for 10 years. And so he will steward that project as a mining project over the coming years. That being said, the dual focus still needs to be that it will get bigger. So it's make it bigger while de-risking the ounces through engineering and permitting and ESG stewardship, which we work very hard on up in Finland. So that's the Finnish assets. And then, of course, we have the Australian assets.
Yes, let's move down here to Victoria, which is where you're based now. So what have you got in the Victorian goldfields?
Well, it was the most inspired move in my career without really meaning to be so, I think, in terms of finding assets in my backyard a few months before COVID hit, because I was getting on the plane, seeing all this Canadian money come into Australia to reinvigorate the Victorian mining scene. It was only the Canadians that spent lots of time recapitalising Fosterville. It wasn't a very it was a C-grade asset, right? It was refractory gold and quite difficult. And Victoria's been difficult with nuggety gold and Bendigo and Ballarat failures. So everyone had forgotten the opportunity in Victoria. But then Fosterville, the light bulb came on and we saw this amazing Cinderella zone. It's the highest grade gold mine on Earth. In fact, 2 of the top 10 highest grade gold mines on Earth last year from production numbers were in Victoria, both Fosterville at number 1 and Costerfield at number 6. And Costerfield is a top 5 antimony producer worldwide also. So nobody thinks that, right? Nobody understands how good Victoria was and is again, because
I think they do now, though, Michael. I think they do now. I mean, we've got people like Navarre is out there doing some great drilling around there. We've got Kalamazoo with their project. So I think Victoria has got back on the map very much so now. But I do agree with you that Fosterville, Kirkland Lake was the ones that got it going, got the interest really revved up.
Absolutely. And there's some great peers doing great work. So I don't want to take away from that at all. But I suppose in terms of, I was getting on the plane for the last few years, seeing all this capital come from Canada. Yeah. And we did a deal on 3 of the 9 epizonal historic fields. So the Fosterville style mineralization is very different to Bendigo Ballarat, and we can talk at length another day about the geological reasons. But the economic opportunity is to look for these Fosterville style, or we call them epizonal. So there's only 9 historic fields in Victoria. We've got 3 of them, 2 under joint venture with a company called Nagambie Resources, and we bought 1 outright where we've made a discovery, and we've been drilling there for the last year. Sunday Creek is that asset, and we've got some very high grades that we're continuously hitting over half a kilometre, and then we've got some broader low grades at 2 to 3 grams around those multi-ounce hits. So it's not a resource yet. It's still a very exciting exploration project, but basically we're aiming to put a resource together next year and start increasing that, just as we've done in Finland over the last 3 years. So that's pretty exciting. And our aim is, because these assets aren't attracting a lot of valuation in Mawson today, to separate Finland, which has now got its own path that I've described, and Victoria, and look at putting these assets into an ASX company, so IPO.
Okay, so given that this is an investor audience, what's the value proposition as you see it for investors out there? Because currently you're on the TSX as MAW. What are you going to be doing going forward? As you just said, putting the Australian assets and IPOing them. What's the value proposition as you see it?
Yeah, so the value proposition is today you've got to have the ability to buy a TSX company and have comfort with it. But in the next 6 months, I hope that we'll have spun out our Victorian and Queensland assets that we won't have time to speak about today into a new company, and we'll be IPOing that. And there's a very standard process here in Australia around raising pre-IPO capital and then IPO capital to fund those projects and take the opportunity. The Mawson shares will be in specie back to its shareholders in the part of that company that the diluted part. So the value proposition is, simply put, is that, today Mawson is has a 1 million ounce discovery that really hasn't seen the valuation. It's a few days old, and we've got the opportunity with a bit of shareholder rebalancing to structurally make that a better option and see those ounces valued as they should, up around $60 to $70 an ounce rather than the $30 an ounce they are today. Victorian assets should be worth, and arguably could be worth, as much as Mawson is today in terms of market cap. Wow. If you look at some of the peers in Victoria and look at the discovery that we had. So there's continued discovery to be made. We're not stopping in Victoria. We'll be having another 20 kilometres of drilling going to Finland. So discovery, corporate restructuring, and working hard to make investors a buck.
Well, it's been great to see you here. And I know that come February, when, fingers crossed, Michael, we can all meet face to face and people can come up and ask you lots of questions. That would be even better. But I really appreciate you giving us an overview on Mawson Gold here on the Gold News Channel today. Thanks so much.